Well, hi everyone. My name is Mark Lancaster. I'm the director of the Northwest California Resource Conservation and Development Council and our program, the Five County Salmon Conservation Program. That's all too long, so we'll just say I'm the director of the 5C. So today I want to talk to you about the East Weaver Dam removal project, specifically phase one, which is the relocation of the intake on East Weaver Creek Dam. East Weaver Creek is a major tributary of the Trinity River, and it supplies water to the community of Weaverville in Trinity County. It's, in fact, it's the primary source of water for much of the year for the residents of Weaverville. The dam itself is about 30 feet long, and it's about 30 feet wide with a 4 to 6 inch concrete slab poured over a large boulder emplacement. The dam has created an 18-foot jump, if you will, at the base of it, and the dam is in very poor condition. In fact, it would rate very, very poor under dam safety criteria. As I noted, the community relies on this dam for much of its water, and as you can see in the right-hand side of this slide, that there's a concrete stilling basin. When the creek is low in the summer, the water tends to flow entirely in that stilling basin rather than over the top of the dam. The stilling basin is unscreened. So when the water is flowing into the basin, fish from upstream are forced into the water treatment plant and can either be flushed out through the bypass system or can actually be sucked into the operations. So it's not a very desirable operation from the standpoint of fisheries. It's also a bit of a concern at the condition of the dam. So the opportunity to partner with the water district to create a safe and reliable water system that would allow fish passage was something that we all recognized and pursued. By the way, we've been working on this project for about 12 years. Going to leap ahead to the end of phase one for just a moment to show you where we ended up. So this is the new intake, whereas the old intake had about 1,000 square feet of concrete surface area. The new intake has about 60 square feet of surface area. And keep in mind that they both provide about the same amount of water to the community. The new intake also has a screen system that protects fish from being washed into the system. And this is a run of the river, if you will, type design. So phase one is going to run for a year. We're going to test the intake, make sure everything works in high flows and in low flows before we do anything to take out the existing intake system on the dam. But phase two is also mainly focused on getting fish and natural sediment routing and bed load routing back into the stream. To do that, we'll actually remove the upper portion of the dam and reconstruct the channel. That will be done in 2023 after we've had a chance to operate the system for a year. So here you can see this is actually a post phase one slide where there used to be just a sheer drop down from the concrete lip. Now there's a boulder ramp up to a portion of the height of the dam. It just gives you a sense of where we'll be at the end of 2023. So like any project, you start with mobilization. This project was to extend 380 feet of 8-inch diameter water pipe from the existing treatment plant up to the new intake, which is located upstream of the existing dam. And just to zoom ahead, at the end of the project, we of course try to restore everything to its natural condition. You'll notice on the right of this particular slide, there's a large pile of rock. That rock will actually be incorporated into the downstream segment of the stream in 2023. The first thing we had to do in preparing this project was to reroute a very popular trail. The Weaverville community has 30 miles of trails that surround the basin. The East Weaver Trail actually ties into the Trinity Alps Wilderness, which is just upstream of this intake. So we needed to get the people away from the work area, so we rerouted half a mile of trail for about 2 months. Once the trail was rerouted, we needed to move the fish and other aquatic species out of the work zone. This work was done with the 5C staff, BLM volunteers, and California Department of Fish and Wildlife fisheries biologists. Moving fish first means installing screens to keep the fish out of the area you're going to work, and then making various passes with nets until you trap as many fish as you can, and then we relied on a electroshocker to get the rest of the fish out. Once they're out, the nets stay up and the fish are excluded from moving back into your work zone, but that's not all. You need to build a cofferdam or some kind of a diversion dam to take the work away from your work site. So once you've got the water shunted around the work site, it frees up the channel where you need to be so that you can work on installing a new intake. While the 5C, Fishing, Game, and BLM staffs were moving the fish, the contractor moved in and began pioneering the waterline route from the existing intake up to the new intake. This route passed through a series of fairly large Douglas fir, Oregon ash, big leaf maple, and other trees. And during the process did require us to remove some trees that we would incorporate into the project as soon as we were able. And the project required large equipment to make it work. And as with everything, you can see the pioneer route from the left prior to the work, brushing it out in the middle, and then late in the fall, after all the branch leaves have fallen off the trees, the restoration of the route back into a natural. So once you have the nets up, you have a constant need to maintain them so that the aquatic resources, the fish can't move back down into your work site. Once the fish have been relocated and the route has been pioneered, the next step in this project was to install the well casings that would serve as the base for the new intake structure. As with any project in a creek, making sure that you protect water quality is always important. We, in this project, actually had to dig down about 11 feet below the existing grade to get to the base of the intake. Once we were down to the grade, in came the well casing prefabricated concrete rings to be placed in the bottom of the pit. Once the elevation was set for the series of rings, next came the need to actually dig the trenches necessary to extend the pipe and tie into the bottom of the water system. And as you can see, water management is always an issue. If you look to the left, you can see the creek is flowing well above the height of the bottom of the excavation, but yet the excavation is not contaminating the creek. Setting grade allowed us to dig down and get the trenches deep enough to install the pipe. This required the installation of shoring for any time that we worked in the trench. With that, the water pipe was brought in and attached in segments until it extended from the inlet to, from the existing treatment plant to the new inlet. Once the pipe was in place and secured, next came the need to actually finish the construction of the intake structure. And so for that, we had to do some base and forming as well as some concrete. And with the concrete ready to be poured, it's just a matter of waiting on the weather. And then curing. The project requires both electric and hydraulic operations, and so that piping had to be put in place as well as the water lines. And again, you can see the creek in the background is bypassing the work area. With the system in place, next came the fish screen, which needed to be walked in. And the fish screen, once it was in place and ready to roll, it left us with the 4 trees that we had to take out, very large diameter Douglas firs that we had to take out, and we had a need for all of them to create habitat within the project. The largest of the trees was moved upstream, and it was wedged between a series of large old growth firs. The log will serve as a deflector during high flows to make sure bed load and large rocks are deflected away from the screens, as well as it'll be used to start to create in-stream habitat features like pools. The intake is in and flows are now flowing back in the channel. The large wood has been moved and placed, and now we enter the monitoring phase. We'll monitor from November of 2022 through beginning of August of 2023 to make sure the inlet is performing properly and that the channel is adjusting the way we planned. And now we're monitoring the winter flows, and we'll continue to do that. In the month and a half since we've completed the project, we've been monitoring. We've seen abnormally low flows at the beginning of November to recent rain on snow events, which resulted in very high flows. We're starting to see some of the desired effects from the large wood placement during the high flows we've had in the first month and a half since the project started. I didn't mention it previously, but the new design includes a minimum bypass flow for beneficial uses downstream, in addition to the fish screen and the natural sediment transport opportunities that the new intake allows. Over this winter, spring, and next summer, we'll monitor the performance of the new intake, and we expect a lot of exciting changes during that period. For example, this photograph was taken on December 28th, 2022. And this photo was taken 2 days later in response to a rain on snow storm event. So we're seeing the dynamics of East Weaver Creek in play just shortly after we were able to put in the new intake. When this project will be done, the 64-year-old dam will be removed and 2.5 miles of upstream habitat will become accessible for various fisheries as well as for natural stream flow processes. Upstream of this property, most of the stream flows through the Trinity Alps wilderness and represents some of the most pristine and suitable habitat for a variety of fish species. thank you for the time to watch this slideshow, and we look forward to telling you what happens in 2023.